Hey everybody, welcome to the Real World Prepper. Today, let's talk a little bit about some considerations for rebuilding society after the balloon goes up. Stick around and we will be right back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of the Real World Prepper. First, let me say thank you to everybody that has subscribed. Thank you for all the things that you guys have sent me. I've been sent nice emails, letters. I got a wedding invitation to you who sent me the wedding invitation. I can't make it, but thank you anyway. I had a subscriber send me a Gadsden flag. Thank you so much. I sent an email thanking you, but I hadn't got a response. I don't know if you saw it or not, but I want you to know I got it. I received it. Amor sent it. Thank you so much. This is very cool. You guys can contact me. Go to my About section. There's a Patreon link if you want to join me there for $1 a month. I would appreciate any support. There's also a USPS P.O. box address that you can send me correspondence to. You can also email me. theworldcanspeak@aol.com. It's all there in the About section. And as always, like, share, and subscribe these videos. Now, let's jump right into this. Do you ever wonder what truly motivates some people? Do you observe someone's behavior and ponder on what makes this person tick? Have you ever thought you had a good read on someone only to be surprised, to say the least, and at times, when they do something that you would consider uncharacteristic or against what you thought you knew about them and how they might respond? The answer is most likely yes to all of these questions from you guys. I would imagine that we've all experienced these things, okay? Through discernment, we as people make judgment calls every day on many different things. We've talked about this in another video, and others have as well. Such as, I'll give you an example, where to sit in a restaurant, okay? Me as a guy who carries all the time, you know, and even if I wasn't carrying for some reason, I position myself in restaurants so that I can see the door, where if I can help it, there's no activity behind me. I'm, you know, back to a wall literally. These are through discernment. I make these judgment calls. Also, like where to park when you're going to a store or any location, where you would park in a parking lot in relation to the door and others around you and that kind of thing. What time of day or night you should travel to certain locations, or even if you should at all. Deciding if you're willing to travel to destinations at all, some of them, based on what you know about the area and things that, you know, considerations there. Let's see. And more importantly, and one of the most important aspects, I think, of discernment, making that judgment call, is deciding if, or rather deciding who we associate with, who we decide to befriend, who we let in on more private matters in our lives, who we keep at a distance, who we avoid altogether, who would be invited into our home and who wouldn't. I've got lots of examples of both ends of the spectrum. I met someone yesterday in person that I've corresponded with for several months, through this channel in fact, that actually that I had at my home, and was a very cool connection made there, which it's who is and is not invited into our circle of trust, if you will, okay? So this is an important thing to do. This is a great trait to have and to pay attention to, discernment, okay? It guides us if we're doing it right. Discernment helps us avoid negative or bad people. It helps us make sound decisions. It helps us raise our children correctly. It helps us maintain healthy relationships, positive relationships, spouses, family, friends, all of those. If we don't possess good discernment, that can lead us into danger, befriending the wrong kind of people, making poor financial decisions, ruining and sabotaging our relationships with friends and family, giving up information that should be left private, all of these things. Now listen, I am, and I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but I'm a social person, okay? I generally like people. I like to help people. I like to host and entertain people. I like to be open and honest with people. I've always had a kind of an open door policy in my home. Traditionally, throughout the years, I like to make people feel welcome and invited. In the past, before I possessed grade A discernment, okay, years ago, this social personality trait of mine, this openness, this being a social person and liking to entertain and host, this trait had led me to situations that were not good, that were potentially dangerous. Situations that could have potentially compromised my safety, my well-being, as well as that of my family. Thankfully, I can say that thus far I have survived in this world, and my discernment and my situational awareness has grown into something that I can trust, something I can depend on, more importantly, something that my family can trust and depend on. Now, this brings me to an important point. Now, today, while the world is still turning in a quote-unquote normal fashion, even though we know that normalcy is going out the window by leaps and bounds, but you get what I'm saying. Society's still functional, still running, you know, in a way where we can still go and do, for the most part, what we want to and need to. So while the world is still turning, we should be forming friendships. We should be forming alliances. We should be building the community that you always hear me speak of, locally and in a more broader sense of things. We should be building this community of like-minded individuals, people that we can trust, people with varied skill sets, people with good work ethics, people we will be calling on when the balloon goes up, potentially calling on. People that we can coordinate with, people that can be considered assets. Also, we should be that same type of person for others, at least for others of the same caliber, of the same like-mindedness. You know, not for sluggards, leeches, etc. This is where you've got to weed this stuff out. Now, this is not easy. Nowadays, I'm a lot slower to let someone in my inner circle, if I let them in at all, but there are good people still out there. We do have allies in this mess of a society that we currently live in. They are there. Again, I have met a few along the way since I began this whole prepping business, and met one yesterday in person that was, you know, frankly was almost 6 months in the making, trying to vet and get to know this person through other correspondence, you know, but a good person to know. You know who I'm talking about out there, and thank you. I enjoyed that yesterday. So I have begun to form these alliances. I have begun to make connections. I'm working on a network, a community. So when the balloon goes up and society changes in ways that we cannot currently fathom, where life as we knew it has ended and a new way of life begins to emerge, one with much lawlessness and a lot more blatant and open evil, where the desperate and the underprepared will do anything to get what they want and or what they need, even at the expense of you and your family's lives and well-being. They won't care, many of them. That is when you will relish in the toils of your community building efforts. That is when you'll be thankful for the alliances that you've made. That will be one more thing for you and your families that you will have on your side, in addition to your preps and your plans made, which you also obviously should be doing, as you hear me say often, prepare, prepare, prepare in every way, okay? But this too will not be as easy as it sounds. It's not as easy as pie, right? This will be when the real work begins. You think you're working hard now at getting your preps together and building community on this side, you know, of SHTF, but when you fast forward to the other side, that's when the real work begins. You see, people all have their own skill sets. Preppers all have their own preps, be they stored foods, fuels, tools, vehicles, weapons, healthcare, etc., etc. Some will have solid plans, some will not. Some will be prepared with things but not have a plan. Others will have a decent plan but not have as much by way of things and preps and such. Some will already be set up to be self-sufficient, and many will not. Most importantly, people will have their own personalities. They will have their own set of morals, their own principles. What is important to some may not be important to others, and so on. So hopefully you've already begun the forming of friendships, the alliances, the getting to know others of like minds. Hopefully you have a plan and are set to work your plan, okay? Because inevitably what will happen is people from all walks of life with a varied host of skill sets, people with all their own personalities and moral compasses, will begin to gather together. This is after the balloon goes up, right? We will get together and begin the work of survival. We will start the work of rebuilding a way of life. And here's the rub. We have to decide together as a group of individuals with all these different personality traits and skills and everything. We will have to work together to do this, okay? We'll have to figure out how to do this fairly. We'll have to figure out how to do this justly, how to dispense with everything from supplies to security, medical care, shelter, and, of course, justice, okay? In this new world, you know, that I believe we're going to be seeing one day, you know, in my lifetime. I hope I'm wrong, okay? Of course I do. But this is the real world prepper. In the real world, these things, it's a possibility, okay? So why not be prepared for it? What's it going to cost you, you know, to just be prepared? And also it builds a social networking, you know, for while everything is still up and running. And if nothing ever happens, great. You've made friends, you've made alliances, you're prepared for even localized disasters and things of that nature. Anyway, I digress. Reliance on the government will be a thing of the past after an SHTF, after the balloon goes up. Rogue groups will be fending for themselves, and in some cases they will try to overtake other groups and locations for control. It will literally be like the Wild West, okay? With proper planning and, more importantly, with much consideration as to how we want our new society to function, we will need all of those varied personalities, we'll need all of the varied skill sets, all of the varied preps, all of the varied opinions, morals, characteristics that make us human to come together. Because in the end, as it may be, or it may be the beginning, however you want to look at it, but when this does take place, we will be responsible. You and me, all of us, will be responsible for piecing together a new society. We will be held accountable by our children and grandchildren and each other for the world in which we live. We will be the designers, the builders of the framework, the enforcement of the rules, whatever they may be. That's one hell of a weight to carry, guys. I don't know about y'all, but that can seem daunting. So, just things to think about, considerations for rebuilding a society when that time comes. I want to let you know that a lot of the inspiration for these thoughts here were brought forth through a book that I'm reading by Steve Smith. He's over at Integrative Preparedness. It's a YouTube channel, a prepper channel, if you will. Steve Smith wrote the Stonemont series. It's a 3-book series. I'm about halfway through the series. It's fiction, but it's an excellent take on, among other things, these aspects of what I just talked about. He's got a great take on these things through this story that he's written. And so again, he was the inspiration, or the books rather were the inspiration for the topic. So thanks a lot, Steve, for that. Great read, guys. Go check it out. You can find it on Amazon. It's called the Stonemont series. And again, it's 3 books. I think he said he's working on a 4th. Again, as always, like, share, subscribe. Check me out on Patreon. I got a USPS P.O. box, email, etc. Comment, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Listen, Real World Prepper, thank you so much for being here today, and I will see you next time.